He, very unfortunately, is not feeling very good. So he's hopefully joining us from his bed. And then we had everything set up, and I had Paul Mathers as a guest set up to join us this evening. And Paul has just suddenly dropped off. So we've had all sorts of catastrophes this evening. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to try and invite him again. And here we go. So here we live in the 21st century. We're in the world of technology, and when technology fails, it all goes wrong. So what is Seedcast? So good evening, everyone. Seedcast is it's live streaming. There is usually Ant Baker and myself. We pick one or two key subjects and topics of interest, and we broadcast live. We try and put a positive spin on things, because not everything is necessarily bad news, and out of every piece of bad news, there's always opportunities. So we try and put a relatively positive spin on things and take a view that there are opportunities out there. So this evening, with Ant being absent, again, we took the opportunity to try and get someone else from the event management industry to join us, a guy called Paul Mathers. And here's Paul now. I will just let him in. Paul, hello.
Hello, John. How are we doing?
Where do we want to begin? So technology.
Technical problems.
So yeah, slight problem. So I have Shujat, who has been kindly talking on Clubhouse. So Shujat is a dear friend and customer of mine, and somebody who's very familiar with the radio world. He was behind Asian Radio, Asian Sound, and some other radio stations as well. So he's been holding the fort, thankfully, on Clubhouse while we're streaming audio through there. So welcome, Paul. We're up and running. We're live. We had, well, it's one of those evenings, right? Ant Baker can't be here because he's not feeling very well. So you kindly stepped in, and I'm not saying it's your fault at all, but you kindly stepped in, and you was just about to introduce yourself, and the link failed.
It did. It just all went pear-shaped. I'm starting to feel it's a bit personal now, but I'm going to hang in there with you, John.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, that's fine. You just crack on, mate. So, but that's an interesting thing, because I want to talk about your background, and I don't mean the fact that you support the wrong rugby team, the wrong cricket team, and all that. I don't want
Well, I mean, what's right and wrong. I think the paradigm is shifting every day at the moment. So who knows? I don't even know what year it is, apparently. I've been sending emails out referring to next year as being 2021. So, who knows what's right and wrong right now?
Well, yeah, very, very true. I mean, but in terms of, what you do, I want to invite you to this evening, because the last couple of days there's been, rumors about announcements, and then the government finally came out, and they've kind of built a roadmap out of where we are, if I can put it that way. And, the hospitality industry has been, decimated with everything that's happened. And the event industry in particular, at least the hospitality industry can do kind of takeaways or deliveries and stuff like that. You can't exactly deliver someone a chair and have them sort of sit at the back of a concert sort of remotely. It doesn't work, right? So, but you're in the hospitality industry. So are you happy with how it's going? Not how it's been, clearly.
Well, I'm in the events industry, not hospitality.
Sorry, I mean events.
Yeah, and sometimes I do get confused. So it's a fair sort of thing to say. Look, I think, John, this is now the second time that we've had essentially a restart of the events industry. The first time the events industry was supposed to restart was March last year, I think. And that never happened. We know that never happened. And so, I think that there's a certain amount of excitement, but also trepidation that the event industry is experiencing towards last night's announcement. It's tough. The events industry have been largely forgotten about during this entire pandemic, and the government has not really given much support at all to our industry, bearing in mind that a lot of our industry is made up of smaller companies. SMEs that work very hard and are very creative, putting on interesting events. It's fair to say that they're the companies that are at the forefront, really pushing the envelope on what's new in events, driving innovation, these smaller companies. But we have been decimated. Many of us have been trading for almost 12 months now without any revenue at all. We've had to cancel events. Some of the lucky ones have been able to put them on. And so getting to this point now, many companies, the ones that are still around, are I'm not going to say desperate, but they're having to innovate to stay alive. And whilst this new start date that's being mooted in May for outdoor events up to 4,000 people, and then of course in June a potential lifting of all the restrictions, it's kind of half of the solution to a bigger problem. Right. The bigger problem being that these companies need some kind of financial support to get them through to that point as well. So it's an interesting time for the events industry. It's very challenging, and we're one of the lucky ones. We're still alive, and that's a pretty privileged position to be in at the moment.
So it's interesting. So that's something I've no visibility on, because if a shop goes bust, if a restaurant goes bust, and there's been enough of those, if travel and transport companies, go under, we see about it, we read about it, because despite the fact we're not using the services or we're using the services very little, they're still very visible.
Mm.
If an event company has gone bust because they're not doing events, they're actually invisible before they disappear. So how badly has it been hit?
The latest figures I'm not exactly sure, because not all of this is particularly transparent. A large percentage of the live events industry, and I'm talking about concerts and theatre when I say live events, right through to wedding planners and people that do what I do. It's a big industry, and a large percentage. And I'm now, if I quote what I think it is, I'm going to be wrong, so I won't. But it's larger than 50% are casual workers or self-employed within that industry. So those figures are very, very hard to say. I know that, though, back in January and December and January, they were saying that 75% of workers within the industry would be unemployed by March if there wasn't some kind of
because it's like 500,000 people in London work in the theatre industry, in every respect. But I guess most of them are self-employed. So, look, one of the values of CCAST is we try and take a positive view, and I get the fact that's a bit like smiling while the dentist has got his fingers in your mouth, as far as you're concerned. Because it's difficult. It's difficult for you to have a positive view, but we do have a way out of it, and there cannot be another lockdown because the people won't stand for it, right? And I think they're being super cautious so that we don't. The events you run are all outdoors, right? They're all they're my kind of stuff, to be honest. But they're all outdoors. So it has to be a good thing, right? We have a way out, and it's a one-way ticket.
Absolutely. This is what the Prime Minister is saying, that it is a one-way ticket to freedom. I think that's the expression he used. And you're right. It is very positive. This is the first time in a long time that we've had a date to work to. And of course, we rely on everybody doing the right thing. But what it means now for businesses like mine is we can genuinely plan. Those conversations that we have on the phone with clients that say, well, are you sure you're going to be able to go ahead? We can actually say, with some kind of basis of fact rather than our own cockeyed optimism, we can actually say, well, yes, have a look at the latest news. These are the dates. And that's really important for us to be able to do. And it's exciting too. When I heard that news or read that news last night, I thought, oh, bloody hell, it's time. And I almost did a little pole dance, Not that I haven't copyrighted that. But I almost did do a little bit of a dance, because so much of it up until now has been doom and gloom. And now there's that light, that moment.
Okay, but I go to a reasonable number of events, and different types. You're a car guy, I'm a car guy. I go to a lot of car events. There were too many, let's be honest, and certainly at the regional end and at the sort of more general end, there were too many. So, I'm trying to find some positive in this. If there's less events coming back, there's less competition. If there's 4 events on a weekend where there used to be 6, well, those events are going to have 15%, 20% more people, surely. So it has to be a good thing as well that there's been this kind of natural attrition, in the same way that restaurants and shops have people very sadly lost their jobs, but it's the healthy ones that have survived, and that's better for all of us, surely.
There's an element of that, John. There's certainly an element of that, but I believe competition is really good, so long as it's the right competition. What you don't want is those events that have got great potential and are really exciting to be the ones that fall off the edge of the earth. If it was only the bad stuff that failed, then we'd be living in a world of greater quality events and greater quality restaurants and greater quality theatre productions and all the rest of it. But that's not always the way it works. And I think that particularly when you're working at the sort of a higher end, the more professional end, because a lot of these events, they're run by people that are hobbyists, if for want of a better word. They're doing it for the love of it, and that grassroots stuff is very important, because it keeps the dream going and it keeps you waiting for those bigger events that come along. But when you're at the sort of the higher professional end of the event industry, regardless of whether it's cars or something else, I believe you need that competition. Competition keeps you honest. Competition keeps you innovative. I enjoy competition. I left Australia where I had no competition. I ran an event over there, which was very, very successful. I founded it, ran it for 10 years, and it was very, very successful. No competition to speak of at all. And I came over here into one of the most competitive car event markets in the world. I could have gone to the USA, and that would have been even more so. But, I've come over here because I think that the competition is great. What it's done is it's actually honed what our event is all about and crystallized that, and that's exciting.
So that's interesting. I was going to ask you why you're here in the nicest way, if you know what I mean. But so it's interesting. So competition is good. I get competition is good, but sometimes there's kind of. I'm not saying there's too much competition, but I'm saying there's too much on that it's difficult to choose.
Well, you can have water, can't you? You can have so much that it muddies all the messaging. It confuses the audience. They don't know what to choose, and they could choose poorly.
So back to my point. What brings you to England? You want to put on let's talk about this. This is a picture of you and a very nice car.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, I don't own that car, unfortunately. That's a Ferrari 196 SP, I think one of 2. That car's not been seen at an event in the UK yet, in its history. It was raced by the Rodriguez brothers, who are quite well-known privateer racers. That's a very, very special car. I think that sold privately coming up on 2 years ago now, but that's a very special car.
I'm not going to ask how much, because it's a number I probably can't count as high to, right? But one of only 2. That's a phenomenal. I suspect they polished it like hell as soon as you took your hand off it, right? It's a little bit of a precious thing, that, isn't it?
Well, it's an all alloy body, so it's very soft. You've got to be careful where you touch and where you push, and you climb into it where you climb in.
You said it's never been at a show. Is that going to be at one of your shows this year?
Yeah, that will be at Auto Royale this year. It's owned by an Australian collector. And that will be one of a number of really, really rare Ferraris that we've got coming. I think Ferraris always sell tickets. It's a fact of car shows. But despite that, we've got a couple of special classes in the Concours d'Elegance that focus pretty much on Ferrari, and it's going to be incredible. Yeah.
Wow, I'm there. So okay. You've had longer to plan, and sometimes you can have too much time to plan. You do too much navel gazing, and you kind of just go round and round in circles.
Yeah.
But you have had longer to plan. I mean, so how much time is the event industry used to kind of actually review what it does and kind of come out better and come out fighting in a better way?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because the smart companies have taken this time to look at their offering and to polish it and to really do some serious that good hard long look at yourself. They've really been introspective about their shows and tried to look at them and pull them apart and see what works and what doesn't, because obviously going a year without revenue, you've got to try to do it with less money too. So again, that forces your innovation, and sometimes you've got to edit an event just like you would edit a book. So I think the smart companies are doing that. We've certainly done that, and we've looked for we've looked to really polish our points of difference from other big events, and to concentrate on those points of difference. So when people attend our event, that's what they're going to see. They're not going to draw the comparisons. They're going to go, "Oh wow, I didn't expect that."
Yeah.
Well, they don't usually do that, that sort of thing.
So the roadmap out of this, defined date, everyone in the industry. I mean, people are going to be miffed at what's happened, and there's going to be companies that don't exist, and obviously a lot of people haven't earned any money, and a lot of self-employed people, which makes it even more difficult. They can't apply for loans and all that kind of stuff. So it's been pretty torrid. But is it a general assumption to say everyone's just gone, now we can get on with it?
Yeah, I think that, yes, definitely. This is what we've been waiting for. I've been on the phone with my colleague trying to sell stands at our show for 2 months now, and everybody, the standard response is, well, let's wait until things become clearer. Well,
so you've made, how many phone calls have you made today? Honest, go on.
Geez, I don't even want to tell you, because it's frightening, the number of phone calls you've got to make. But this whole notion of things becoming clearer, and my natural response to that is, well, what do you want? They could never become clearer. We could be doing all of this in 5 years' time. But the fact is, we've got a date. That's something to work with. And there's a lot of companies out there that, even though they might have struggled through this period, have tried to anticipate what that date is. We had a show scheduled for last year. We had to cancel that, and we took a punt on things being all right in a year. So we took a punt on July being okay, knowing that actually last time the lockdown stopped a week before our event. So,
because some events can go virtual. I was supposed to be a speaker at an event last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was a business event, and they went online and they said, right, we're going to do, you can give a PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint presentation and have people tune in and watch, and it was supposed to be, I think, a 3-day event. At the end of the first day, kind of 2 hours into the second day, they just gave up. The technology, I think they were just trying to be too ambitious with the technology. They weren't a technology company.
Yeah.
The gate, the attendance wasn't there. The technology fell over, and looking back on it, part of me is like, well, was it a brave decision to kind of, let's just do it differently and embrace the tech and see if it works? Or is the braver decision to go, it's not happening, so let's just face up to it and let's move forward and cancel this year, do next year? I guess it's kind of a tough decision to make.
There are certain events that you can only do face to face. The guys at Magneto magazine, who publish a great magazine, they created a virtual concours d'elegance, and that was a really brave effort. And it went very well, and it was something that was interesting to do, but it doesn't replace your visitor experience of going and looking at those cars yourself. It's like a food show. You might be able to do a food show with chefs cooking online and doing master classes that you subscribe to and that sort of thing, but it doesn't replace the smell, buzz of the crowd, or eating the food yourself.
But that's the thing, we've got the rugby, the Six Nations on at the moment, and there's other sports on as well, and it's all canned audience noises because there's no atmosphere.
Well, that's horrible. But even compare live going to the rugby versus watching it on telly. You get into the crowd. at the rugby, and you are cheering, and you've got people that are on the opposing team next to you, and there's chants that go on, and you're part of the spirit, and that's the sense of occasion that you get from a live event. When you're watching on telly, it's, oh, I'll have another beer now, and can you put some pies in the oven, love? that and that's
do you really talk to your wife like that? Please
no,
tell
I
me.
don't. I'd get slapped about if I did. But you know what I mean? It's an experience, but it's a different type of experience, and it's not one that you can replicate. You can't replicate that live experience in virtual terms.
Yeah, I get it, and it's that casual conversation, queuing up for a cup of coffee or standing next to looking at something. If it's an art exhibition, you have a conversation with a complete stranger next to you, right? Exactly. Or maybe that's just me.
But I tell you what, the virtual world has informed a little bit of what I think will go on in events moving forward. Okay. I think a lot of events, live events that need to be live, may well incorporate virtual elements and virtual content into it. It's something that we're doing and we're exploring. The idea of creating unique content that perhaps you can only get at the show, but it's online content, it's virtual content that you can take away with you. So you come along, you engage with a display, you scan it, you get some unique content there. Oh, that's all very interesting. I can't get that somewhere else. You go along and you scan something else. And I think that's very basic, of course, but I think that kind of technology we're going to find is incorporated more and more into live events because it can enhance a live event. I just don't think it can replace it unless you're doing something like this, Right. And I know that one of my team just yesterday did a masterclass with a chef, and there were 20 in the masterclass, and it must have been done on Zoom or something like that. And the chef taught them all how to make an apple pie, let's say.
Okay.
And they all had their ingredients. They're all following one. He's telling his stories, and that's great. And you can do that. It's not the same as doing it live.
It's really interesting you said that. A couple of weeks ago was my daughter's birthday, and she did exactly that. She had all of her friends at their homes, and they were baking. Right. It's kids baking, so guess what? It was chocolate brownies, right? So, but we put all the ingredients in a bag and then delivered them to the doors of each of the thing. And my daughter was actually the chef. Much to her annoyance, every time she asked me to do something, I just shouted, "Yes, chef!" But even there, a birthday party, it wasn't the same. But it was different. But it doesn't mean it was bad. Different. It was just different.
No, it's right, and that's a really innovative use of the technology and the situation that we're in to bring people together. And I think that, again, I talk about innovation a lot. I think that that's really important. I think that this whole pandemic has forced us to innovate. But I don't think that we're going to rely on that moving forward, and that's going to be our life. I think what we're going to do is get back to something that was pretty close to what was normal before. And then we've got all of this other innovation that's going to enhance that experience. Right. Now, in my industry, that's a pretty exciting idea. And in lots of industries, I'm sure that's a really exciting idea. I mean, look how Zoom and Teams and so on have transformed the workplace. And now we've got people working from home. They're telecommuting. Telecommuting was something that we talked about as being something in the future. In fact, a lot of people thought it would never happen because you can't work at home. You can't have whole teams working at home. Interestingly, a couple of years ago, with the firm I used to work for, we our office closed down. We ended our lease, and it was 2 months, I think, before we went into our new building. So we worked from home, and that was, in this case, it was a team of 6 or 7 people, and we found ourselves to be more productive.
But it was a temporary thing. There was a kind of there was a perception. Going into it, you knew it was a finite.
Yes, it was. But by the same token, we didn't have the tools to support us like we have now. We didn't have Zoom.
But you didn't have to kind of arrange to discreetly meet at a 1+1 with a cup of coffee and go for a walk around the park as if you were exercising. You could actually meet in a pub, right?
No, we didn't, of course, but I suppose my point is that which 2 years ago was it was an extreme in many ways, has now become something that's been normalized. And I think, people want to get back to the office. I mean, I'd love to get back to the office and have real people around me rather than, pillows and paintings.
Rather than talking to me on thanks.
But the fact is that this whole telecommunication has made the world much smaller and easier to manage. So this whole notion of expensing your trips so you can go and see a client that's 2 hours drive away and that costing money, you can now do this viably because people are used to it. People aren't afraid of it as being a bit too outside of the norm for them.
Yeah.
So in as much as that transforms the office place, in the events world, that some of these things are actually transforming what we're doing as well. And that's exciting. I'm really turned on by that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, 2 questions then before we go, and it is about 1:30. So, appreciate you giving up your part of your evening, and hopefully you're not delaying your dinner by too much. But 2 questions before you go. The B word, Brexit, and whether that's had an impact because you're based in the UK. What does that mean for you? And the other thing is, are we at the point where, they're going to be queuing up hopefully they are, for you and for every other one, because people in the events industry, they deserve, a bumper payday because they've been through hell for 12 months.
Sure.
But is there going to be that significant, even more significant uptake, or are people going to go, I've kind of got used to not going to events. I've kind of got used to going for a walk around the park or, sitting on the sun lounger in the garden. I've got used to all that stuff. The thirst, hunger, which take your pick, for events is not what it was before.
Yeah, sure. I'll answer the Brexit one first. I think that Brexit has had a pretty significant impact, at least on the automotive industry. And I think that as we get further and further into it, we're going to discover the impacts that it has on the rest of business. I know that we have clients in Europe, and it affects our ability to do business with them, at least from a perception point of view, until we get used to the processes. I know from their perspective, they see difficulty now. I know that a lot of the clients that I've got that are selling cars in Europe are finding it impossible now to sell them from the UK into Europe because of the new duties that are imposed and so on. And that's happening at the very, very highest level of the classic car trade too. So it's hard for them. They're experiencing genuine hardship. Brexit, I'm an Australian. I have no political feelings about Brexit at all. I'm neither a Brexiter nor a Remainer. But as an outsider, I've yet to see the genuine, tangible benefits of Brexit to business. And that's just my observation. Certainly from the seat that I sit in, I've not seen all the positive. I've had a lot of pushback.
Yeah, but then it was never going to be a flick of a switch. I mean,
it never are.
Take us 3 years just to actually say one thing and do one thing. It's interesting, I guess. But it's like any big decision, be it in business, be it in life generally. You naturally focus on the downside, and then you learn over time to accommodate, and then you find the good. And
any change is difficult.
Right.
Any change is difficult. And in business, it's more so because you're not just changing your own mind about something. You've got to take a whole bunch of other people and clients and suppliers. You've got to take them with you on that journey. So, I think any change is difficult. And there's certainly going to be companies that are different to mine that find it a whole lot different to me. Like I say, I have no political feelings about it, but this is just my observation so far, that it's going to be quite hard. But to answer the other question, John, I truly believe, and I've got a whole philosophy about events, I truly believe that people want to, on a genetic level, they want to gather with their tribes. People need to be together. Throughout history, tribes have passed down their stories through oral histories, and we do it today as well. When the grandson sits on granddad's knee and he tells him stories of days of old, One thing that we discovered in my old show, Motor Classica, very, very early on in the piece, something that was completely authentic and not manufactured at all. We discovered early on that show was not about cars at all. It was about people.
Yes.
And it was about people coming together to tell stories. And there is that inbred need, that need that brings people that think the same way together. They need to be with their tribes.
Yes.
And my philosophy about events has always been to bring tribes of people together. So given that is a given, I think that people are experiencing now, this removal from their tribe, this absence from their tribe, and that yearning to be with their tribe, I think just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's why people can't stick to lockdown rules, and it's why people are going to go to the beach on a sunny day. If they think that they're allowed to, or if they think that they can get away with it. It's why people will break the rules. It's also why people are suffering depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's why suicide rates are going up. That's all really the negative part about this isolation from our tribes. So I think, to answer the question, when events come back, I think that people will throng to them. And
right.
It's my hope that they do, but I also think that they will, because if I speak from my perspective, God, I can't wait to get out and do something.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I've never walked so much in my life. Actually, it's not true. I do my week's worth of walking every Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
The rest of the time I'm just sat in a chair. I probably walk just as far as I used to, but it's just now condensed into 2 days. But it's funny. Just sitting in a coffee shop. You don't even have to be with someone. You could just that murmur of background noise and conversation and just being part of society, rather than almost at the moment we're all spectators on society, because we're not. We're all detached.
It doesn't exist. It's all online.
It's true.
Yeah.
So just before we go, and I will let you go. What's it like in Australia right now? What's the news from there? Because I want to hear the real news, not what we see on telly.
Well, Facebook has now pulled all news services from Australia, so it's hard to get the news now actually being overseas. I only know from what I'm told. Look, Australia's taking a different stance towards COVID to what the UK is. Australia's going for elimination, just like New Zealand and some of these other countries that managed to control it really early on. And they're playing it with a pretty heavy hand. If they get a couple of cases, they go into lockdown, they stamp it out, and that's their approach to it. It's difficult, because what it means is that there's not a whole lot of clarity. If something happens next week, by the following week, we could all be in lockdown again, is the sense of it. So there's a different sense of unease over there. In many ways, we're better off here. In some ways, we're not as well off as them. I mean, in Australia, the exhibition industry is not opening up, despite the fact that there might only be a handful of cases compared to us. There's no talk of going to a concert anytime this year. So my old show, Motor Classic, has been cancelled 2 years running now. So there's not a whole lot of. Yes, they might be able to go out to a coffee shop, or yes, they might be able to go out to a restaurant socially distanced, but there's no normality that's returned.
Well, it's interesting because my old rugby chum Mick Coxedge is forever posting up pictures of him swimming and on the beach, and it is summer over there, and so it does have that perception of a version of normality, right? Even if it is just a version of. So.
Yeah, it does, but it's not quite the same. Melbourne, where I'm from, for example, has just only a week or so ago come out of a full lockdown.
Right.
So, and they were in that lockdown for oh goodness me, I don't know. I think it was 8 weeks or something like that. Wow. I mean, they came out of a 5-day one, but before that they were in one for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, something like that. So I mean, it's being handled differently, and I don't think you can say that it's better or worse. It's just differently. They can go to the football, for example, they can go and do that, but it's only in certain states, and it's only if the COVID number is below something, and so it's all very measured.
Okay, cool. Paul, I have to say, absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. We have. See, it's been such an interesting conversation. We haven't even mentioned poor Anthony, who's laid up, with COVID at the moment. Poor chap. He did send me a photo of himself this morning, so that's a good sign. The fact he's laying down doing selfies.
Well, I saw the last photo of him you posted, so that was very.
Yes, yeah. Apparently, he's a goalkeeper. That's why he wears pink. I still don't understand. I can't get my head around it. But there you are. I can't see many Aussie rules players wearing that kind of colour, personally.
No, I can't either.
But look, appreciate you spending your time. Thank you very much for taking my call earlier today when I said, "Hey, what are you doing at 7 o'clock?" And you very jadedly went, "Why?"
Yeah, well, it was unexpected, but that's okay. Some of the good things are in life unexpected.
Indeed. And thank you for putting up with all the technical problems earlier. I'm going to play back, just what a car crash it really was, me trying to sort of text you and email you and get the technology up and continue to talk on Clubhouse. So we'll see what that looks like.
You'll have to do an outtakes thing, yeah.
Yeah, we will. Paul, thank you very much. I will see you at Auto Royale, if not before, but certainly at Auto Royale. And then, we can have a nice, not socially distanced glass of champagne.
That sounds perfect to me, John.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.